pals, it's Rachel over at Moonlight Library. I am back today, a little late on this, but we're doing my 2023 favorite books. Is it top 10? No. But is it top something? Yes. I read like 106 books, something around there, 108, I don't know. I'm here today to give you that. I went through a bit of a reading slump for a while. That's why I haven't really been on here, because I'm like, I read one book in December. It got real bad. I was like not reading anything. So I have books though to share, books I loved from throughout this year, and hopefully that will spark some joy within me. Oh my god, my cat is trying to destroy my setup. Maybe it'll spark some joy within me to find another book that I want to start reading. So let's go through the books. I think there might be like 13 or 14 books here, so sorry. So we're beginning at the very beginning of the year. I think it was actually the first book I read in 2023 was How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. It's almost like a short story collection, but as a novel. Some people call it a composite novel. So each story focuses on something different, but it all comes together as a full story within itself. So you're not like following the same characters, but at the same time, you're following the same overarching story, which has to do with kind of the world ending, weird sci-fi things like strange diseases, and it is quite the weird and wild ride. I read this with my book club, and I think I was the only one who truly loved it. Everyone else was like, I don't know, it didn't really hit. And I was like, this hit. This had everything in it. This had like weird space bubbles. It had amusement park of death. It had talking pig. It had everything I ever wanted. And was I happy with it? I was ecstatic, overjoyed. I loved it. So, and then we have We Spread by Iain Reid. This is my second Iain Reid I'd read. I had read I'm Thinking of Ending Things a couple years back, and We Spread was phenomenal. I think this might actually have been the second book I read. You know, the beginning of the year was really good for me, so hopefully that's saying that this beginning of the year is going to be really good for me too, even though the first and only book I've read so far this year I gave 1 star. But let's forget about that, and I will never speak about that book, or maybe I will, and we'll just see. So We Spread, this is an old woman who ends up, she's all alone. Her husband has died, or her life partner, and she ends up at this retirement community. You don't really know what's going on. She doesn't really know what's going on. And it is horror. It's scary. It's unsettling. There's some gross depictions in it. And it really hits you. And it really hits your emotional chords are just singing in this one. And some of the stuff that she goes through, you're just like, Bunny by ML Awad. I finally read this book and I loved it. This is weird girl literature to the maximum. This is like the starter pack is this one. This is this girl who is in this graduate creative writing program where everyone else in the creative writing program, they're the bunnies, and they're this very close-knit group, and she's kind of on the outskirts, our main girl. It gets weirder than you could ever imagine weird getting. Unbelievable, the things that happen within this book. It is completely unbelievable. Wild and weird and wacky and very Frankenstein meets the Heathers meets a lot of different things that if you are cult classic loving girly that want some weird stuff, this is it. Or, you know, you don't even have to be a girly to love it. So, Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. My brain can't say that name. Sometimes I'm like, Auerbach. This one is horror. Once again, do we feel a theme? Kind of. It's not going to follow a theme. You know, I'm all over the place. I've been wanting to read this book for so many years, and I'm so glad I finally got around to it, because it is unsettling. It's this man who is looking back on his childhood and reflecting on these weird things that happen with a pen pal. They wrote letters in his kindergarten first grade class and attached them to balloons and let them go off to see if someone would write back. And he started having his pen pal write back, and his pen pal A little weird. So each section is a story, and it kind of involves different things that he is reflecting on that have to do with this pen pal, and it is horrifying. Horrifying. One of the last stories, the one at the mall, no thank you. I'm good without, and I'll sit with that forever. And so it's one of my favorite books of the year. Once There Were Wolves. This one was a beautiful tale of this woman who moves to Scotland, and she is reintroducing gray wolves to the environment because there are no like large apex predators there, and the wolves used to be there, so they're like doing a reintroduction, and it's her trying to reintroduce them to society, but at the same time society fighting back against that idea, and family things going on as well. And it's kind of a mystery, which you don't expect that to happen, but that happens. Like, I didn't think it was going to be a little bit of a mystery, but it was. But it's definitely more literary fiction. Heart-wrenching. It is really a family piece. It is the look at how families interact in trauma and grief and stuff like that. Okay, I've brought up this book so many times on this channel. This is You've Lost a Lot of Blood, and I still can't believe I haven't read another Eric LaRocca by now, because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I did read half of one, because I'll talk about that another time. Anyways, we're getting there. Reading slump. Reading slump. That's what I'm going to blame everything on. You've Lost a Lot of Blood is like horror video game meets like what is reality, meta, strangeness, middle of nowhere. Oh my God. And it's also like very epistolary in a way. You're like reading this guy's book, but also reading his diary entries, transcripts of different conversations he's had, and it is horrifying. I feel like that is the song of 2023 favorite books is it horrifying? Yes, then it should be on this list. Because it is horrifying. Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. This one, so Amber Tamblyn is from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and she writes a real killer here. I freaking loved this book. It's essay, but from a male gaze, or like males being the victims of SA. That's the better way to put that. And it is so sad and so traumatic, and it really takes an interesting approach and lens to issues and such like that, and bringing things up and bringing things to light. And the way that it is told is a poet's word, the whole thing is poetry, and I cannot wait for her to write another novel, because the way that she tells a story is just gut-wrenching, beautiful. Babel by RF Kuang. How can it not be? How can it not be? I loved it. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I'm glad I finally read this. I was trying to get rid of the idea of, like, I would only read books that were smaller for a while. Like, I was having a hard time picking up larger books because I felt like I had to be reading a certain amount every month, and I felt like I needed to get rid of that idea. And so I ended up reading Babel, and I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I am going to focus more on me as a reader than me as a have to pump out content, because I don't need to do that. I started this channel because I want to enjoy reading, and so therefore, anyways, that's a whole tangent I don't need to go on right now. So anyways, Babel. So this one, it follows this boy, I think his name's Robin. Wow, girl, get it together. So Robin, he's Chinese, he's from Canton. He ends up getting adopted by this Englishman who brings him over to England, where he is going to be trained into being silver workers. So they're kind of like magicians, but they're also linguists. He's going to study at the Tower of Babel, which is in Oxford, and it's very highly regarded. It's like the best thing you could ever do. Like, you're the smartest person ever if you're studying at Babel to be a silver worker. That's just crazy. It's about colonization, it's about race, it's about language, it's about all sorts of things that you don't expect it to be about, and that you're just like completely amazed by what RF Kuang can do inside of this novel, and it is breathtaking. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafka. This is an obvious one. I feel like it was on so many people's lists last year, and I finally got around to reading it, and the beauty of the word, the beauty of the language, the writing is immaculate, unbelievable. Anyways, we are following the story of a serial killer. He is on his last 24 hours before he's to be executed, and we're following him on his countdown, but we're also following the women whose lives he has affected, them leading up to like have met him to present day, basically. His mother being one of them, and I think it's a total of 3 women. It is heart gut wrenching. I love a sad book, and this book was sad. I'd be crying, and it was beautiful. Tortured. Okay, we got an author double whammy here, and I'm just going to show you both of them, and then I'll talk about them separately. Year of the Witching and House of Hunger. So first I read House of Hunger at the beginning of the year, and this is a vampire, dark but sapphic. It's fantasy. It is like so many things. It is so gruesome. It's very gory, and it is beautiful. Interesting world building, very niche aesthetic happening. Perfect. I can't stop doing that. That's just my thing. And the other one, A Year of the Witching, is Alexis Henderson's first novel. And this one, we're following this girl. This is like kind of like puritanical society, but a fictionalized, fantasticalized, I'm going to say that word, that's not a word, society that lives in this very secluded place called Bethel. And this one girl, her name is Emmanuel. Her mother was seen to be a witch, and she died after giving birth to her. So she's always been seen as like a curse or something, and stuff goes down. Stuff goes down. End of times. And what does Emmanuel do? You know what I mean? And the society as a whole. Yeah. So there was supposed to be a sequel for this, but I guess there's not going to be. I feel like it was a very good standalone novel, and you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy with what I got. One of my favorite books this year. So there you go. The Atlas 6. This is my first Olivie Blake, and I bought the other 2 because I couldn't help myself. I really need to stop doing that. I need to not just like buy all the other books in a series after I read the first one. I mean, the third one just came out like today, but I pre-ordered it and I just got it in the mail. So there you go. But Atlas 6, we have a fantasy novel, we have a school society, but like also it is kind of like a game. So we have like a competition happening, and so we have 6 people who are magicians who end up in this very elite society, and there can only be 5 who end up like staying in the society. And the characters are great. The setup is amazing. It is told from all points of view, which I love. So it's not like so much is hidden from us. It's kind of all given to you. You're following everyone. You're following people you fucking hate. People you cannot stand. You get to see them. And I was living for the drama. Living for it. Last but not least, the Dark Academia that created Dark Academia. And as you could see through some of the books I just listed there, I was on a Dark Academia kick. So I had to read If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Yes, I did. And I loved it. It was Shakespearean. It was college. It was someone dies, but what happened? Who dies? How did they die? And it's just the tragedy of the whole thing, and following all these people and figuring out what happened, why did it happen, kind of the interminglings and inner workings of these people and their relationships with each other. Perfect. And it's set perfectly to what Shakespeare is and what the plays were that they were acting, because these are actors in this like acting program that is focusing on Shakespeare, and amazing, amazing. So if you have any dark academia, recommend it to me. Anywho, that's it. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 books for 2023. My favorites. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be back soon. That's all I can say. Anyways, bye.